You know how it is you're trying to build or maybe revamp your online presence, and suddenly you're just neck deep in website platforms.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one shouts about being the simplest or the cheapest, the ultimate solution.
Mm-hmm. The best thing since sliced bread.
Exactly. But if you've been there, you know that what you see on the surface, well, it's just a fraction of the story when it comes to truly running a successful website.
That's absolutely right. And today, we're kind of pulling back the curtain on that.
Good.
We're taking a deep dive into the real cost of having a website platform. We're looking specifically at something called the total cost of ownership, or TCO,
TCO.
of a content management system, a CMS. We've got some really eye-opening information here that breaks down all the different things that add up to what you'll actually pay over the lifespan of your site.
Exactly. We've been looking at different CMS options, and a key focus in the stuff we read is this comparison. Platforms like HubSpot CMS versus maybe more traditional choices.
Right, like WordPress and others.
Yeah, and the core mission for you listening today is to really understand that TCO. It's the long game we're talking about, isn't it? Not just the initial sign-up fee.
Absolutely. And just to make sure we're all on the same page here, a CMS is basically the software that lets you create and manage your website content without needing to be, a coding wizard.
Mm-hmm. Makes it accessible.
Yeah. Think of names you've probably heard. HubSpot CMS, WordPress, Squarespace, Wix.
Sure.
Even the ones more focused on e-commerce, like Magento and Shopify, or maybe design-heavy ones like Webflow. They're all CMSs.
Got it. So our goal for this deep dive is, well, it's simple, but it feels pretty crucial to help you grasp what TCO really means, why it's such a game changer to understand it,
Mm-hmm.
and how to navigate this surprisingly complex world of CMS costs. Ultimately, you want to equip you, the listener, to make a truly informed decision.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's unpack this TCO thing. What is total cost of ownership when we're talking about a CMS? Because it definitely sounds like more than just the monthly bill.
You're spot on. Yeah, it's way more than that.
Yeah.
At its core, TCO covers every single expense, both the obvious ones and the not-so-obvious ones,
Okay.
associated with using a CMS from day one all the way through its use.
The whole life cycle.
Exactly. It just blasts past that initial subscription price you see advertised. We're talking about the cost of getting it set up, the ongoing maintenance, those vital upgrades, how it plays with your other business tools, the absolute necessity of security these days, and even making sure your team actually knows how to use it effectively.
The training aspect too.
Yes. The core insight of TCO is really this. That upfront price tag, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Long-term success really hinges on understanding the full spectrum of costs involved.
Right, so it's the entire life cycle cost. Okay, so why should you, the listener, really care about digging into this TCO? I mean, it sounds like potentially a lot of number crunching.
Well, it might feel like a bit of extra effort up front. I get that.
Yeah.
But understanding your TCO is actually, it's the bedrock of smart decision-making for your website.
Okay, how so?
Well, firstly, it allows for much more realistic budgeting. You're not just planning for that initial payment. You're forecasting the bigger picture, the ongoing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Avoid surprises later.
Exactly. And this then directly feeds into your understanding of potential return on investment, your ROI. If you know the true cost, you can actually evaluate the value you're getting much better.
Makes sense.
And crucially, it helps you sidestep those nasty financial surprises down the road. Plus, it ensures you're allocating your resources, both, money and people, in the most efficient way possible.
Right.
We saw examples where people are lured by low initial CMS costs, maybe like a cheap monthly fee.
Yeah, the flashy offer.
Right, only to be surprised by, say, hefty hosting fees that weren't included. And those can quickly dwarf the CMS price itself. That low initial cost can be incredibly tempting, but it rarely tells the whole story about which solution is truly cheapest in the long run.
That's a really good point. It's like buying a super cheap printer, but then the ink cartridges cost a fortune.
Exactly, that kind of thing, yeah.
So if we're looking at the big picture of CMS costs, what are the main buckets, maybe, that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, we can generally break these costs down into three main areas. You've got what you pay upfront, the initial costs.
Okay.
Then there's what you pay regularly to keep things running, the ongoing costs.
Right.
And then there are those, let's call them hidden costs, the sneaky expenses that can often catch you off guard.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Hidden costs sound ominous. Let's maybe start with the initial ones first.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
What falls into that first category? Well, the most obvious are the subscription fees.
Right, the monthly or annual charge.
Exactly. The monthly or annual charge, the CMS provider quotes. And interestingly, our sources pointed out how some platforms, like Squarespace is mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they might prominently display the annual cost, which makes the monthly equivalent look lower than if you actually paid month to month.
Ah, clever. So you need to check the billing cycle.
Definitely scrutinize those details.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have setup and installation fees.
Hmm.
This covers the cost of actually getting the CMS up and running the configuration, maybe integrating it with systems you already use.
Getting it talking to everything else.
Precisely. And this often demands specialized expertise, which naturally involves a cost. Think of it like getting a complex piece of machinery delivered and needing a technician to assemble and calibrate it properly.
Right, making sure all the pieces work together right from the get-go.
Exactly. Following that, you've got design and development costs.
Okay. Making it look like your site.
Yeah. It's pretty unusual for a CMS to perfectly match your brand and your functional needs right out of the box.
Mm.
You'll likely need to invest in customizing its look and feel, maybe adding specific features, tweaking the layout,
Mm.
and ensuring it integrates smoothly with how your business actually operates.
Right.
And finally, in this initial bucket, we have training costs. If your team isn't already familiar with the new CMS, you'll need to budget for their training so they can use it effectively.
Yeah, I can't just throw it at them.
No. This might even involve bringing in external specialists, maybe for the initial setup, and then to kind of transfer their knowledge to your team.
Okay, those initial costs, I mean, they could be significant, but they seem relatively easy to identify upfront, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
What about the ongoing costs? What keeps the financial wheels turning after your site is live?
Right, the ongoing costs. This is where you see the recurring expenses that are just essential for keeping your website active, secure, and performing well.
Okay.
The first big one to consider is hosting fees. Now, some CMS platforms like HubSpot actually include hosting in their subscription package.
That's handy.
It is, but many others, perhaps most others, require you to get hosting separately, and the price for this can vary dramatically.
How about dramatically?
Well, our sources highlighted the difference between, say, a basic hosting plan from someone like GoDaddy, maybe fine for a small local business,
Okay.
versus the substantially higher costs of enterprise-grade hosting needed for a website with, tons of traffic and complex needs.
Ah, okay. So that cheap CMS could suddenly get quite expensive once you add mandatory hosting.
Precisely. The hosting could easily represent a major additional expense, sometimes more than the CMS itself.
Wow. Okay, what's next after hosting?
Next up is maintenance and updates. Like any software, really, a CMS needs regular servicing. Bug fixes, security patches, performance tweaks.
Keeping it running smoothly.
Exactly. Now, many CMS platforms do offer automatic updates. WordPress is a good example, though you can usually disable that if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But there can still be costs tied to updates. For instance, if you've built custom features on top of the CMS,
Yeah.
you might need to pay a developer to make sure those customizations don't break when the main platform updates. You don't want your fancy custom bits failing every few months.
That's a really good point. Custom work needs custom care. What else is ongoing?
Security measures. Absolutely paramount, and it's an ongoing investment, not a one-off.
Right.
The digital threat landscape is, well, it's constantly evolving, right? So you need to factor in the costs of implementing and maintaining cybersecurity protocols, data protection software, maybe doing regular security audits,
Mm-hmm.
and even ongoing training for your staff to keep them aware of the latest phishing scams or data security best practices. It all adds up.
Yes, security's never done.
Never done. And lastly, in this ongoing category, there are additional plugins or extensions.
Oh, the add-ons.
The add-ons. While a CMS gives you the core stuff, you'll often find you need to extend its capabilities with third-party tools.
Right.
As our source pointed out with WordPress plugins, many use a freemium model. The basic version might be free, but the really useful features often require a paid subscription.
Yep. Seen that many times.
And this is where some platforms, like HubSpot again, try to differentiate themselves. They aim to provide a broader range of features out of the box to try and minimize that reliance on and the cost of all these external plugins.
Okay, so initial costs to get started, ongoing costs to keep the lights on. Now, tell us about these hidden costs. They still sound like the kind of surprises nobody wants.
It really can be unwelcome surprises, yeah, because they're the expenses you might not immediately think about, but they can significantly hit your bottom line.
Like what?
One major category is downtime costs, and we can look at this from two angles, technical and security.
Okay.
Technical downtime is when your website just goes offline,
Hmm.
maybe due to unexpected glitches, server issues, or even during planned maintenance periods.
Right. Site unavailable.
Exactly. And that can lead to lost productivity for your team, definitely missed revenue if you sell online, and it can damage your customer relationships and trust.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there's the cost of actually figuring out what went wrong and getting the site back up.
Yeah.
Nobody wants their website going dark unexpectedly.
Absolutely not. It's like a shop suddenly closing its doors during peak hours. Not good.
Not good at all. And then there's downtime caused by security breaches, cyber attacks, hacks.
Ugh, even worse.
Yeah. This can have similar negative impacts, lost revenue, damage to your brand reputation, but it can also lead to significant financial penalties if you fail to comply with data protection laws, like GDPR or others.
Right, the regulatory fines.
Exactly. Plus, you've got the costs of forensic analysis to figure out what happened, repairing your systems, and beefing up your security afterwards to prevent it happening again. It can get very expensive very quickly.
Okay. Downtime, technical or security related. What else is hiding?
The other potentially substantial hidden cost is migration costs.
Ah, switching platforms.
Exactly. If you ever decide to switch from one CMS to another, the whole process, transferring all your content, your data, setting up the new system, maybe converting file formats, checking for errors, it can be a really significant undertaking.
I can imagine. Sounds like a huge project.
It often is, and expensive.
Mm.
While some CMS providers might offer migration tools, and there are third-party services that specialize in this, it's definitely a big factor to consider in your long-term planning, even if you don't plan to switch now.
Wow, okay. Those hidden costs, downtime, security breaches, migration, they really underscore why thinking long-term about your CMS choice is so vital. It's not just about launching the site.
Not at all.
It's about ensuring it keeps running, stays secure, and maybe even accommodates future changes like switching platforms. So, okay, we've talked a lot about the costs, the potential pitfalls. What about the upside? How can a well-chosen CMS actually contribute to a positive return on investment?
That's a crucial shift in perspective, absolutely. Because while the costs can seem, substantial when you list them all out, a well-implemented CMS can actually drive significant returns for your business.
Okay,
For
figured.
instance, it can lead to increased efficiency, even though we mentioned initial training costs.
Right.
A good CMS should ultimately streamline your workflows. It should empower your team to manage website content and your whole digital presence more effectively, saving time and resources in the long run.
So less time fiddling, more time doing productive stuff.
That's exactly. It can also lead to more streamlined operations through better integration with your other essential business systems, your CRM, your marketing tools, whatever.
Hmm.
That reduces the need for manual data entry, cuts down on errors, and just improves overall productivity.
So it's not just about minimizing expenses on the website itself, it's about making the whole operation more effective, which could boost revenue too.
Precisely. And think about the user experience. A well-functioning CMS contributes directly to a smoother, more positive front-end experience for your website visitors and customers.
Yeah, nobody likes a clunky website.
Nobody. A professional, fast, user-friendly website builds trust, it strengthens your brand reputation, and ultimately that can lead to increased conversions and sales.
Mm-hmm. Tangible benefit.
Definitely. And circling back to the financial side,
Yeah.
even though doing that TCO calculation might seem like extra work,
Right.
having that clear understanding of all the potential cost actually leads to clearer and more predictable budgeting overall. It's much better than having this fragmented collection of unmanaged, untracked expenses from a bunch of different tools that aren't properly integrated.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Getting a handle on the total cost brings predictability. So how do we actually do that? How do we take all this information and calculate the TCO for specific CMS we might be considering? What are the practical steps?
Right, the how-to. It involves a few key stages. First, you need to really identify and list all those initial costs that apply to your specific situation. Go back to those categories: subscription fees, setup, design, training, etc.
Okay, list the upfront stuff.
Yep. Next, you need to estimate all the recurring ongoing costs: hosting, maintenance, security updates, any plugins or extensions you'll need,
The regular bills?
the regular bills. Critically, don't forget to also estimate those potential hidden costs. Try to put a number on potential migration expenses down the line, if that's a possibility, and maybe even factor in the potential impact of downtime based on your business.
That last one sounds tricky to estimate.
It can be, but even a rough estimate is better than ignoring it completely. Once you've compiled all these figures, initial, ongoing, hidden, home, the really vital step is to aggregate them and make sure they're all calculated over the same time period.
Apples to apples comparison.
Exactly. Whether you're looking at a monthly TCO or an annual TCO, make it consistent so you can meaningfully compare different platforms.
Okay.
And finally, it's really essential to use the most current pricing information you can find. Software costs, service fees, they can fluctuate, so use up-to-date figures.
Right. So it's a bit of investigative work, uncovering all the potential expenses, followed by some careful maths to get that total TCO figure. I think I recall our sources mentioning that some platforms actually provide TCO calculators. Is that right?
That's an excellent point. Yes, absolutely. A growing number of CMS providers are offering TCO calculators on their websites.
Oh, handy.
Yeah, they're designed to help potential customers, like you, get a clearer picture of the potential costs involved with their platform. Among the ones we talked about, HubSpot and Shopify were specifically mentioned as offering these kinds of tools.
Okay.
They can be a really useful starting point in your evaluation, though you'll still want to tailor it to your specific needs.
That's really helpful to know those exist. Now, our sources also, they dug a bit deeper into the specific cost structure of HubSpot CMS. Can you walk us through some of those details, just as an example?
Absolutely. Yeah. HubSpot is designed as a modular system. It has different hubs for various business functions. There's the CMS hub, obviously, but also marketing hub, sales hub, service hub, content hub, operations hub.
Lots of hubs.
Lots of hubs. And while you can definitely just use the CMS hub on its own, many businesses will likely want to integrate it with one or more of these other hubs, and each hub has its own pricing structure.
Okay, so you pick and choose or bundle them.
Right. HubSpot also offers pre-packaged software bundles, like the Customer Platform Bundle or Marketing Plus Ad, and you also have the flexibility to create custom bundles. Importantly, each of these individual hubs and the bundles typically come in 3 pricing tiers: Starter, Professional, and Enterprise.
And I assume they get more expensive as you go up.
Correct. As you move up the tiers, the subscription cost increases, but you also get access to more advanced features and higher usage limits, things like the number of contacts or users.
Right, so it's a system that can potentially scale with your business as it grows and your needs change.
That's the idea, yes.
Okay. What are some of the other specific costs someone considering HubSpot CMS might encounter, beyond just those core subscription fees for the hubs and tiers?
Good question. Beyond the recurring subscription fees, there are several other potential costs to just be aware of. For some hubs, especially the higher tiers, there might be a one-time onboarding fee.
Okay, for setup and training.
Yeah.
Exactly. Initial setup, training, strategic guidance. Also, if you want really unique website design, beyond the free templates they offer, you might need to budget for template purchase or custom design services. That could even involve hiring developers if you outsource that design work.
Right.
And while HubSpot provides that initial onboarding training, you might find you need additional or ongoing staff training as you adopt more features or as your team changes.
Makes sense.
Then there are potential integration costs. If you need to connect HubSpot with other existing business systems you rely on or integrate specific third-party apps, there might be costs associated with setting that up.
Okay.
And as we discussed earlier in the hidden costs section, if you're moving from a different platform, migration costs can be significant.
Still got to factor that in.
Yep. And even though HubSpot handles the core platform updates automatically, if you build custom functionalities within your HubSpot CMS, you might face some ongoing maintenance costs to ensure those custom bits stay compatible and functional after updates. Same issue as with other platforms if you customize heavily.
Potentially, yes. And finally, don't forget the basics. Things like operational costs, registering your domain name, managing SSL certificates. Those might be separate from your HubSpot subscription itself.
Okay, that's a really detailed breakdown. It highlights that even with a comprehensive integrated platform like HubSpot, there are still various potential costs to feed into that TCO calculation.
Absolutely. No platform is entirely free of these considerations.
Now, the other side of the coin, our sources also touched upon potential cost savings you might realize by choosing HubSpot, compared to maybe patching together other solutions. What were some of those advantages?
Right, the potential savings. One of the primary advantages that came up is HubSpot's tightly integrated ecosystem.
The all-in-one idea.
Exactly. Because it aims to provide this unified solution, website, marketing, sales, service,
Yeah.
it can potentially lead to significant cost savings by just eliminating the need to buy, integrate, and manage multiple different software packages from various vendors.
Less juggling of different tools and bills.
Less juggling, less integration hassle, potentially fewer subscription fees overall. This integration benefit also applies within the HubSpot CMS itself. It often includes a more comprehensive set of features built in compared to platforms like WordPress, which, as we said, often rely heavily on third-party plugins for advanced stuff.
So fewer paid plugins needed.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
That can reduce ongoing costs and also the complexity of managing, 10, 20 different plugins from different developers.
Right.
Furthermore, a big one, HubSpot CMS includes secure and reliable hosting as part of the subscription.
Yeah.
So you don't have that separate, potentially large hosting fee to worry about.
That's a key point, linking back to our earlier discussion.
It is. And lastly, their scalable pricing model was mentioned as a benefit. It allows you to start with a plan that fits your current needs and budget, and then upgrade features and capacity as your business expands. So you're hopefully not overpaying early on for the things you don't use yet.
Okay, so while the initial subscription cost for something like HubSpot might look higher compared to, say, just a basic WordPress install, the potential to consolidate your software stack, reduce the need for paid add-ons, and bundle in hosting could actually translate into significant long-term savings when you look at the TCO.
That's precisely the core argument. That's why looking at the total cost of ownership is so important. It forces you to look beyond that initial sticker price and evaluate the entire cost picture over the life of your website platform.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive, really digging into the total cost of ownership of a CMS. It's crystal clear that while it might not be the most glamorous part of building a website,
Not glamorous.
understanding these costs is absolutely crucial for making smart, informed decisions.
Couldn't agree more. Yes, it requires a bit of effort, a bit of digging to really investigate all these potential costs. But the knowledge you gain, it's invaluable for making the right strategic CMS choice for your business.
And by understanding these different categories, the initial, the ongoing, those sneaky hidden costs, you, our listener, will be much better equipped now to evaluate any CMS platform you're considering, not just the specific examples like HubSpot or WordPress we touched on today.
Absolutely. With this framework in mind, you can ask much more targeted questions when you're talking to vendors. You can compare different platforms much more effectively on a true cost basis, and ultimately select a CMS that not only meets your functional needs, but also genuinely aligns with your budget and your long-term financial picture.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Now that you have a much clearer understanding of the true costs involved in choosing and running a website platform, what specific aspect of your current or maybe your potential CMS deserves a closer look through this TCO lens? And how might understanding its total cost of ownership reshape your whole approach to your online presence?
That's definitely something worth pondering.